A prenuptial agreement is the best way, in my opinion, to say I love you to the person you're going to marry. Why is that? When you look at the person you're going to marry and you say to them, I love you so much that even if someday I don't, even if someday we disagree or something happens, I'm going to take care of you. And I'm going to hold myself to that because I'm going to write it down in this agreement and I'm going to require it of myself. It says, I love you so much that even if someday this isn't going to work, we're going to resolve this peacefully because we're going to have a method by which to do that. We're going to hold ourselves to it by putting it in this document. It says, I love you so much that I'm going to ensure that we have a successful marriage by planning everything out in advance. We're going to have discussions about finances, about children, about saving for retirement, about taking care of our elderly parents, and anything else that we need to do. And as much of it as we can, we're going to write down on a piece of paper and we're going to hold ourselves to it. It says, I love you so much that when I walk down the aisle or I'm waiting for you at the end of the aisle and we hold hands and say, I do, we know exactly what we're saying I do to because we wrote our own marriage rules. We didn't use the state's. We created our own, and our marriage is going to be our own. That's what a prenup is. I just told you what a prenup is, but what are the mechanics of a prenup? A prenup is a written agreement between two parties intending to marry. It is an agreement that is written out about how they're going to handle their marriage, and if the worst happens, how they're going to handle their divorce. When you prepare a prenuptial agreement, both of you lay all your cards on the table. By that, I mean you have to disclose your income, your assets, and any liabilities that you may have. Everybody's going to have a full financial picture, and everybody is going to have a full understanding of how they expect the marriage to go. Your prenup can refer to things about kids. For example, it can have in there what you intend to do as far as your child's religion, or what you intend to do as far as your children, whether or not you want to pay for college or private school. But because children are their own individuals, what's best for a child that doesn't, for example, exist today at the time you're about to get married, the court's not going to necessarily hold you or your spouse to that agreement. For example, you can't put in there who's going to have custody of a child. But putting down some of your intentions about who might raise the child if something happened to both of you, or the fact that you intend to pay for college, the court can consider them when determining the best interest of your child. There are so many benefits of having a prenuptial agreement. The first one being it forces you and your soon-to-be spouse to having these important conversations. Second, it makes sure you know exactly what you're saying yes to the moment that you say I do. Another thing that is great about a prenup is it forces everybody to put all their cards on the table. You're going to know exactly what your spouse earns, what they have in savings, and what their debts are. And same thing with the other side. And I can't tell you how many divorces I've handled where people had no idea about their spouse's financial condition. Another great thing about a prenup is that it is going to make sure that the two of you are on the same page about how you want your marriage to run. I tell business owners, you wouldn't start a business without a business plan. I don't understand how people start marriages without a marriage plan. And that's what a prenup is. It's a marriage plan. And by the way, it's not meant to be put in some drawer and brought out 20 years later. Your prenup is a living, breathing document. You should take a look at it anytime you have a big life change. Perhaps when you have children, or you buy a house, or you retire, or anything that's huge. Pull it out, dust it off, and make sure that your intentions haven't changed. And finally, if at any point you plan to be a stay-at-home parent, you need a prenuptial agreement or a postnuptial agreement if you're already married. If you're going to voluntarily give up your earning potential, your career progression to stay home and be the steward of your family at home, there needs to be an option, an avenue, if things are to go horribly, for you to get back out into the workforce or for you to be protected and for you to get that retraining and be compensated for any loss of your career projection that you may have had. After all, if you're the one staying at home taking care of your children, it allows your spouse to be fully into and focused on their work. And that's a benefit to them. There are a lot of things that you want to consider when drafting your prenuptial agreement. And we made it easy for you. We have our own prenuptial agreement checklist, and you can download it now. It's going to help you and your spouse, well, your soon-to-be spouse, sit down and have a date night and talk about your future. After all, isn't that what dreaming is? talking about your future and making goals and plans, that's what we want you to do for your prenup. We want you to sit down, go through our checklist, and make your plan for your future. Make a plan for your marriage. And make sure that the two of you are on the same page. Negotiate a little if you have to, but make sure that you understand what it is that both of you are walking into. It can be really fun to create a future together. So download our checklist and get started. Some of the things you're going to find in there are questions about how do you want to organize your finances? Do you want to have a joint bank account, or do you want to have separate bank accounts? Or do you want a hybrid situation? Who do you want to take care of any potential kids if something happened to you? And if, God forbid, something happened to one of your parents, are you comfortable with having them in your home? Or is it something where you need to figure out an option outside of your home? Do you want to support your elderly parents, or is that something you don't feel responsible for? These are big questions and big conversations, and it's important to have them before you walk down the aisle. You can challenge a prenup. I'm not going to lie, at the end of the day, the prenup almost always wins. But there are opportunities where the prenup does not win. Number one, if you were coerced into getting a prenup. If your spouse presented it to you 48 hours before the wedding and said, sign it or the wedding is off, you might be able to challenge the prenup. If you did not have the opportunity to have your own counsel, you may have an opportunity to challenge the prenup. If the financial disclosure was incomplete or was never done, this means you had no idea what your spouse had or didn't have. You may be able to challenge the prenup. There are some other opportunities to challenge the prenup, but those are the big ones. You didn't have the full financial disclosure, you didn't have the opportunity to talk about counsel, and there was duress. So keep these in mind also if you are going to get a prenup. Don't do it last minute. Make sure you're honest about the financial disclosure, and everybody needs the opportunity to have their own counsel. You want them to understand what they're signing, and you need to understand what you're signing. How do you make sure that your prenup is invincible? All right, here are 3 quick, important tips for how to make sure that your prenup wins in a challenge. Number 1, make sure that you are honest with your financial disclosure. Financial disclosures are incredibly important when coming up with a prenuptial agreement. One of the benefits of a prenuptial agreement is that everybody knows what everybody's assets and incomes and liabilities are so that they know what they're walking into. And if you're dishonest, that can undermine your prenup. Number 2, both parties have the opportunity to talk to their counsel. Everybody needs a lawyer to explain to them what the prenup means. After all, you want to make sure that your intended knows what they're signing and that you know what you're signing. And as long as both parties had the opportunity to consult with counsel, that's only going to strengthen the prenup. And finally, don't wait until the last minute. If you present a prenup to your soon-to-be spouse 48 hours before your wedding and say, sign this or the wedding's off, that's not going to help the integrity of your prenup. Start early. Make sure the prenup is signed well in advance of the wedding. In my perfect world, the prenup's going to be signed at least 30 days before the wedding. At Z Family Law, we don't write endings, we create new beginnings. And we want to be part of your new beginning and your new marriage. So if you want to have a prenuptial agreement, come and talk to our legal team. We're excited to meet with you. Contact below.